Welcome again to episode 4 of the lead guitar track. I'm glad you stopped by again. Remember to post comments and feedback on the blog so that I know how we can make this as effective as possible to help you become that lead guitar player that you want to play. Okay, got a lot to talk about. First, I want to talk a little bit about review. Last week we talked about being able to connect hearing major and minor songs, and specifically major ones, to the notes that you hear, numbering them 1 through 7 and then repeating again. And hopefully you had a good time this week watching The Sound of Music. If you didn't, you need to watch it. It'll really help understand what's going on. Hopefully you understand regardless, but actually hopefully you watched it. So check it out if you haven't watched it. If you haven't checked out this link, it's the song that I'm referring to. If you want to cheat the Cliff Notes. So definitely that's a good place to start. But now to move on to the next step. Now you understand and you're starting to hear and connect the numbers of a scale with the notes that you hear on a song. And I want to cover a couple of little complicated things in how we connect major and minor scale notes to one another. So that probably didn't make any sense. Here, let me see what I can do. Okay, so we talked about how how a scale uses 7 notes of the 11 available to us in our tonal music, the kind of music that we hear. So we had the major, which is just a combination of those 7 notes together to make up the major scale. And if you see my fingers here, I've got the root here, and then I skip a fret, so that that's one of the 11 notes I'm skipping before I do the other one if I were to go on the same string here. So I'd go 1, skip 1, and that's called a whole step. So each fret is a half step, and when you skip one, that's a whole. If you know your math, a whole, two halves equal a whole. So we've got a whole step, a half step, a whole step, a whole step, and half step. I'm trying to get you to be able to see on there. So whole, half, whole, half. Okay, that's how it goes. Now with a minor, it's actually the same order of notes, or the same progression, but you start a minor third, which is just a couple half steps lower from the root. So it'd be like, here's C, that's that start. So an A, so there's 1 half step, 2 half steps, 3 half step. That's a minor third, which is 1.5 steps. So there's 1 step, 1.5. And so the notes on an A minor, and we'll talk about what this means later, but it's an A minor harmonic scale, are the same as the notes for the major. So here's the C major, and I'm going to go down a minor third to the A, which is right there, and it's actually the same. If I were to start on the third note of the A minor scale, it's actually the same ones as the same notes as the C major scale. So that's kind of how they link together. So I'm going somewhere with this. So what we're going to work on today is something called the pentatonic scale, which penta, 5, is really just a choice of 5 of those 7 notes in a scale that you can use to more easily know what notes you can use when you're soloing. So, again, I'm still getting to it, but how this is important for you to tie the major and the minor is actually one of the position of the pentatonic that I want to show you this week is the same position for 2 different scales, the major and then what's called the relative minor. Okay, so for what I'll show you today is the A minor being the relative minor to the C major. So that's the position of the pentatonic we're going to learn today. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to jump right into it. You're going to start on your high E string, your first string, and use your pinky, the 4, way up on the 8th fret, right there. Okay? So you go 4, 1, 4, 1. Now, so far, and hey, let's do the next 2. 3, 1. So 4, 1, 4, 1, 3, 1. So far, that's the same as the exercise 2 that we learned last week, right? And then you went up your fretboard, okay? So for this one, we're going to continue on. So you go 4 1 4 1 3 1 3 1 3 1 4 1. Okay. Now that I said is for the C major. That's the C major chord, or the A minor, which actually that's the A minor 7 chord. So right in that position, you can solo with that pentatonic, and you're safe because all of those notes are in both of those scales. So that's a great place. And we did our first finger exercise is right there too. So that's your C major scale right in the middle of your C pentatonic, which is also your A minor, relative minor to C. Okay? So does that make sense? So this week I want you to learn that pentatonic scale. That's 4 1 4 1 3 1 3 1 3 1 4 1, and be able to go up and down. So actually that becomes an exercise number 3. So you've got 3 exercises for you to be working on with your metronome, making sure you continue to do that practice. So while you're doing it too, you can try singing along as you go. But really the next step that I'd like to do for ear training is while you're still working on the same thing we were working on before, where you listen and you hear major songs and you start to try to connect those numbers to the melodies that you hear, you can take this pentatonic scale and try to find that root. So how we'll do that on your 3rd string, which is your G string. Remember, that's where we started the first exercise. That's your root, okay? So that would be a C major. So what I want you to do is listen for a major song, find where that root is, and so we'll say that the song we're listening to on the radio is in C, and I want you to start to connect. Remember, I think, what was it? 4 4 4 4 4 3 2 2 1. Start to be able to connect lead lines with your major scale and then with your pentatonic, and be able to sing the numbers if you can. And so this is a lot of out loud practice that you need to do to be able to hear, make the connection, understand what you're playing, and be able to move forward that way. So that is a lot to work on, and we'll spend a little bit of time thinking through that. So you've got your exercises, exercise 1, exercise 2, which both of those are going to play into your pentatonic scale for your major and the relative minor. And right now we'll continue to work on just the major C major, which is starting there on the 5th through the 8th fret, which is also the relative minor A minor pentatonic right there, starting to hear and connect your notes with that. And I do want to mention at the same time, if you're playing a minor song, and right now we are focusing on major, but I'm doubtful that everyone's going to stay with a major. If you do a minor song, know that your starting note is not the same. So even though my starting note for the C major scale is right there on the C, on that 3rd string on the G, I'm going to be starting on 1 there when I'm in A minor, and then going up the scale that way. So just know, if you're singing the numbers, it needs to adjust depending on which scale you're in, if you're going to stay in the same position to be able to use that. Hope that makes sense. We can cover it again later in some other ways to help make those connections. Okay, so the last thing I really want to talk about this week is going back a little bit to the purpose of these lessons and give you a different tool that will help you to grow quickly. My goal in creating this program is not to repeat what you could get everywhere else. And so if you saw the first episode, you know that was what I came out saying is this isn't going to be the same as the other programs, and I want to stay true to that. So what I want to do is let you know that this, as I said again in the first episode, this isn't meant to be everything you need. It's just a way for you to become a lead player as quickly as possible and have the tools that you need to do that. But I want you to be able to learn technique, and I want you to be able to learn the things that you do need to learn in order to be a great player. And I want to point you to a resource that has been really valuable to me. to help me with more finger exercises. I don't want to load you up with a ton of finger exercises because number one, it's really difficult for me to create a ton of new ones when there are great ones that are already in existence. And number two, there are a lot of other things you can learn from other people. So plenty of tools out there. I want you to know that I'm not sponsored by any of those, although I would love to be, particularly by this one. But if you go to metalmethod.com, there is a great set of tools to help you to become a better player, loads of great exercises. And I'll recommend two programs, both of which I've used. So the first one is the Metal Method. Doug Mark's method that he uses to teach guitar is a fantastic program loaded with a lot about technique, setting up your guitar, stringing your guitar, how to pick, how to hold your guitar. Great exercises and really learning your fretboard. Definitely check out Metal Method, the Metal Method with Doug Marks, and then also the Speed Kills program. Michelangelo just kills it. So both of those are really great programs to be able to fill in some of the gaps here. So that's not going to say leave and go do that, but I'm hoping that together you'll be a more well-rounded guitar player, because my focus here is going to be a lot more on hearing and training and some of the tricks to help you get playing with what you hear as a guitar player, where what they're going to do and doing a fantastic job is teach you all around your instrument and how to have the tools so that you can take what you learn everywhere and just be all around a fantastic guitar player. So check out Metal Method. But for us, to recap, we've got a bunch of things to talk about, to work on this week. The first thing being continuing to work on your voice training, where you're hearing your pitches and you're being able to sing and connect notes with the scale, notes with the song, with the melodies that are being used. And then secondly, we want to work on the pentatonic scale and do the same thing, be able to recognize where are the notes, where you are, and we're working on that scale on the 5th through the 8th fret, which is also the key of C major and the relative minor A. And we know that because minor and major scales share a minor third below when you're talking about the minor compared to the major. So if you go a minor third below the root of the major, you'll find the root for the minor, the relative minor. So for us, that's the C on the 5th fret, which is also the A minor on the 5th fret. So the C, we'll talk about that later, but you get it. Okay? So we'll see you next week, and thanks for watching.